ॐ भूर्भुवः स्वः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः. Namaste, my dear friends. I am going to make this video on the very important topic, talks with Annamalai Swami. Dialogues with Annamalai Swami, a self-realized expert on self-enquiry who was a direct disciple of Ramana Maharshi. So on the demand of many of my friends, I am making this video. So Annamalai Swami came to Bhagwan in 1928. After a brief spell working as Bhagwan's attendant, he received a new job from him, supervising all the building projects in the ashram. Between 1928 and 1938, working directly under Bhagwan, he supervised the construction of the cowshed, the Ved Pathshala, the dining room, the storeroom, the old office block, now used as the book packing room, the dispensary, and the large revetment on the north side of the ashram. In 1938, an experience he had with Bhagwan changed the course of his life. Now, Annamalai Swami describes his experience with Bhagwan as follows. He says, I went to Bhagwan's bathroom to help him with his morning bath, Madhava Swami, and I gave him the usual oil bath and massage. When the bath was over, Madhava Swami asked a question. Bhagwan, the people who take ganja, lehyam, an Ayurvedic medicine whose principal ingredient is cannabis, experience some kind of ananda. What is the nature of this ananda? Is it the same ananda the scriptures speak of? Bhagwan replied, eating this ganja is a very bad habit. Then laughing loudly, he came over to me, that is to Annamalai Swami, hugged me and called out, Ananda. Ananda means bliss, bliss. This is how these ganja taking people behave. It was not a brief hug. Madhava Swami told me later that he held me tightly for about 2 minutes. After the first few seconds, completely lost all awareness of my body, means Annamalai Swami's body, and the world. Initially, there was a feeling of happiness and bliss, but this soon gave way to a state in which there were no feelings and no experience. This was a Shakti path. The Guru imparts his spiritual power to his disciple. So in Hindu Dharma, this type of activity is known as Shakti path. That means transfer of spiritual powers from the Guru to the disciple. The same thing was In case of Paramahamsa Ramakrishna imparted his spiritual powers to his disciples, especially Swami Vivekananda. So, Paramahamsa Ramakrishna imparted his spiritual power to Swami Vivekananda and others of his disciples through Shaktipat. I did not lose consciousness. I just ceased to be aware of anything that was going on around me. I remained in this state for about 15 minutes. When I recovered my usual world consciousness, I was standing alone in the bathroom. Madhava, Swami and Bhagwan had long since departed on break for breakfast. I had not seen them open the door and leave, nor had I heard the breakfast bell. This experience completely changed my life. As soon as I recovered normal consciousness, I knew that my working life at Sri Ramanashramam had come to an end. I knew that henceforth I would be living outside the ashram and spending most of my time in meditation. So this was nothing but Shaktipat, through which Bhagwan Sri Ramana Maharshi imparted his spiritual power to Annamalai Swami. In 1942, following a request from Bhagwan, he came back to the ashram and did one more major construction job, the construction of a dispensary. Though he was not a full-time ashram worker after 1938, he continued to help with minor ashram works whenever Bhagwan asked him to. So Annamalai Swami was a very close disciple of Bhagwan Sri Ramana Maharshi. He was he received special grace from Ramana Bhagwan. Bhagwan approved of his decision to leave, and within a few hours of having had the experience, Annamalai Swami had established himself in Palakotu, the Sadhu colony which adjoined the ashram. Bhagwan encouraged him to build a house there and even helped him by advising on its design and construction. Annamalai Swami has lived there ever since. In fact, he has not left Tiruvannamalai even for a single day since 1938. Bhagwan told him to lead a quiet, reclusive life and to meditate continuously on the self. Taking this to be his Guru's Upadesa, he spent the succeeding years trying to stabilizing in the experience of the self, a brief glimpse of which had been given him by Bhagwan during their encounter in the bathroom. After many years of arduous and unremitting effort, he says that he was able to stabilize himself in self-awareness to such an extent that the experience is now continuous and effortless. In the last few years, many devotees have started to visit him seeking spiritual guidance. Though he does not encourage visitors, he is help permitting, always willing to see people who want to talk about Bhagwan's teaching or the practice of meditation. The following exchanges recorded in 1987 are typical of the many that have taken place in his ashram in the last few years. Now the talks. Question: what is the easiest way to be free of the little self? This little self is, another name is I thought. Another name is ego. Little self, I thought, ego, or identifying the self with the body. So this is the same. Annamalai Swami replies, stop identifying with it. If you can convince yourself this little self is not really me, it will just if disappear. That means if you seek the ego, it will disappear. When you direct ego or I thought or your mind towards the spiritual heart, this mind or ego, it is purified and it submerges with the self. That means the mind purifies when it is moving towards the self or inwardly. When the mind is going outwardly, it is having negative energy and worldly thoughts. But when the mind or ego, they are diverted towards the self, they are purified and they have positive energy and they are the self. So this photo is residents and visitors at Sri Ramana ashram in the 1930s. Annamalai Swami is at far left with crossed arms. Good. Question: but how to do this? Annamalai Swami replies, the little self is something which only appears to be real. So this ego takes the form of the Atma. If you understand that it has no real existence, it will disappear, leaving behind it the experience of the real and only self. Understand that it has no real existence and it will stop troubling you. Consciousness is universal. There is no limitation or little self in it. It is only when we identify ourselves with and limit ourselves to the body and the mind that this false self is born. If through enquiry you go to the source of this little self, you find that it dissolves into nothingness. So, when we stop identifying ourselves with the body, this mind and this ego, already they are non-existent, but they are completely vanished from the scene. Question: but I am very accustomed to feel I am this little self. I cannot break this habit merely by thinking I am not this little self. Annamalai Swami replies, this little self will only give way to the real self If you meditate constantly, you cannot whisk it away with a few stray thoughts. Try to remember the analogy of the rope, which looks like a snake in twilight. If you see the rope as a snake, the real nature of the rope is hidden from you. If you only see the rope, the snake is not there. Not only that, you know that there never was a snake there. When you have that clear and correct perception that the snake never at any time existed, the question of how to kill the snake disappears. Apply this analogy to the little self that you are worrying about. If you can understand that this little self never at any time had any existence outside your imagination, you will not be concerned about ways and means of getting rid of it. See how the wrong conception of snake in a rope, how it can be avoided by light. When there is light, we can see the rope directly and no snake. Same way, when we enlighten ourselves directly and realize the self, because self is luminous. So, in the light of the self, the mind and ego also vanish. This is Annamalai Swami with cow Lakshmi. So Annamalai Swami with Lakshmi on Arunachala. Question. It is all very clear, but I feel that I need some help. I'm not sure that I can generate this understanding by myself. Annamalai Swami, the desire for assistance is part of your problem. Don't make the mistake of imagining that there is some goal to be reached or attained. If you think like this, you will start looking for methods to practice and people to help you. This just perpetuates the problem you are trying to end. Instead, cultivate the strong awareness I am the self, I am that, I am Brahma, I am everything. You don't need any method to get rid of the wrong ideas you have about yourself. All you have to do is stop believing them. The best way to do this is to replace them with ideas which more accurately reflect the real state of affairs. If you think and meditate, I am the self, it will do you a lot more good than thinking I am the little self. How can I get rid of this little self? The self is always attained, it is always realized. It is not something that you have to seek, reach, or discover. Your vasanas and all the wrong ideas you have about yourself are blocking and hiding the experience of the real self. If you don't identify with the wrong ideas, your self nature will not be hidden from you. You said that you needed help. If your desire to gain a proper understanding of your real nature is intense enough, help will automatically come. If you want to generate an awareness of your real nature, you will be immeasurably helped by having contact with a jnani. The power and grace which a jnani radiates quietens the mind and automatically eliminates the wrong wrong ideas you have about yourself. You can make progress by having satsang of a realized guru and by constant spiritual practice. But the guru cannot do everything for you. If you want to give up the limiting habits of many lifetimes, you must practice constantly. Most people take the appearance of the snake in the rope to be reality. Acting on their misperceptions, they think of many different ways of killing the snake. But they can never succeed in getting rid of the snake until they first give up the idea that there really is a snake there. People who want to kill or control the mind have the same problem. They imagine that there is a mind which needs to be controlled and then take drastic steps to beat it into submission. If instead they generate the understanding that there is no such thing as mind, all their problems would come to an end. You must generate the conviction: I am the all pervasive consciousness in which all bodies and minds in the world are appearing and disappearing. I am the consciousness which remains unchanged and unaffected by these appearances and disappearances. Stabilize yourself in that conviction. That is all you need to do. Bhagwan sometimes told a story about a man who wanted to bury his shadow in a pit. He dug the pit and stood in such a position that his shadow was on the bottom of it. The man then tried to bury it by covering it with earth. Each time he threw some soil in the hole, the shadow appeared on top of it. Of course, he never succeeded in bringing the shadow. Many people behave like this when they meditate. They take the mind to be real, try to fight it and kill it, and always fail. These fights against the mind are all mental activities which strengthen the mind instead of weakening it. If you want to get rid of the mind, all you have to do is understand that it is not me. Cultivate the awareness: I am the immanent consciousness. When that understanding becomes firm, the non existent mind will not trouble you. So, this is Annamalai Swami and Major Chadwick. Question: I don't think that repeating I am not the mind, I am consciousness will ever convince me that I am not the mind. It will just be another thought going on within the mind. If I could experience even for a moment what it is like to be without the mind, the conviction would automatically come. I think that 1 second of experiencing consciousness as it really is would be more convincing than several years of mental repetitions. Annamalai Swami. Every time you go to sleep, you have the experience of being without a mind. You cannot deny that you exist while you are asleep, and you cannot deny that your mind is not functioning while you are in dreamless sleep. This daily experience should convince you that it is possible to continue your existence without a mind. Of course, you do not have the experience of full consciousness while you are asleep, but if you think about what happens during this state, you should come to understand that your existence, the continuity of your being, is in no way dependent on your mind or identification with it. When the mind reappears every morning, you instantly jump to the conclusion: this is the real me. If you reflect on this preposition for some time, you will see how absurd it is. If what you really are only exists when the mind is present, you have to accept that you did not exist while you were asleep. No one will accept such an absurd conclusion. If you analyze your alternating states, you will discover that it is your direct experience that you exist whether you are awake or asleep. You will also discover that the mind only becomes active while you are waking or dreaming. From these simple daily experiences, it should be easy to understand that the mind is something that comes and goes. Your existence is not wiped out each time the mind ceases to function. I am not telling you some abstruse philosophical theory. I am telling you something that you can validate by direct experience in any 24-hour period of your life. Take these facts which can discover by direct experiencing them and investigate them a little more. When the mind appears every morning, don't jump to the usual conclusion. This is me. These thoughts are mine. Instead, watch these thoughts come and go without identifying with them in any way. If you can resist the impulse to claim each and every thought as your own, you will come to a startling conclusion. You will discover that you are the consciousness in which the thoughts appear and disappear. You will discover that this thing called mind only exists when thoughts are allowed to run free. Like the snake which appears in the rope, you will discover that the mind is only an illusion which appears through ignorance or misperception. You want some experience that will convince you that what I'm saying is true. You can have that experience if you give up your lifelong habit of inventing an I which claims all thoughts as mine. Be conscious of yourself as consciousness alone. Watch all the thoughts come and go. Come to the conclusion by direct experience that you are really consciousness itself, not its ephemeral contents. Clouds come and go in the sky, but the appearance and disappearance of the clouds don't affect the sky. Your real nature is like the sky, like space, just remain like the sky and let thought clouds come and go. If you cultivate this attitude of indifference toward the mind, gradually you will detach yourself from it. Question. Bhagwan said that repeating I am the self is an aid to enquiry, but it does not constitute the enquiry itself. Annamalai Swami. The meditation, I am not the body or the mind, I am the immanent self, is a great aid for as long as one is not able to do self-inquiry properly or constantly. Bhagavan said, keeping the mind in the heart is self-inquiry. If you cannot do this by asking who am I or by taking the I thought back to its source, then meditation on the awareness I am the all-pervasive self is a great aid. Bhagwan often said that we should read and study the Ribhu Gita regularly. In the Ribhu Gita, it is said that Bhavana, I am not the body, I am not the mind, I am Dharma, I am everything is to be repeated again and again until this becomes the natural state. Bhagwan sat with us every day while we chanted extract from the Ribhu Gita, which affirmed the reality of the self. It is true that he said that these repetitions are only an aid to self-inquiry, but they are a very powerful aid. By practicing this way, the mind becomes more and more attuned with the reality. When the mind has become purified by this practice, it is easier to take it back to its source and keep it there. When one is able to abide in the self directly, one doesn't need it like this. But if this is not possible, these practices can definitely help one. Annamalai Swami in his room. Question: what is the correct way to pursue self-inquiry? Annamalai Swami replies, Bhagwan has said when thoughts arise, stop them from developing by inquiring to whom is this thought coming. As soon as the thought appears, what does it matter if many thoughts keep coming up? Inquire into their origin or find out who has the thoughts, and sooner or later the flow of thoughts will stop. This is how self-inquiry should be practiced. When Bhagwan spoke like this, he sometimes used the analogy of a besieged fort. If one systematically closes off all entrances to such a fort and then picks off the occupants one by one as they try to come out, sooner or later the fort will be empty. Bhagwan said that we should apply these same tactics to the mind. How to go about doing this? Seal off the entrances and exits to the mind by not reacting to rising thoughts or sense impressions. Don't let new ideas, judgments, like dislikes, etc. enter the mind, and don't let rising thoughts flourish and distract your attention. When you have sealed off the mind in this way, challenge each emerging thought as it appears by asking, where have you come from, or who is the person who is having this thought? If you can do this continuously with full attention, new thoughts will appear momentarily and then disappear. If you can maintain the siege for long enough, a time will come when no more thoughts arise, or if they do, they will only be fleeting, undistracting images on the periphery of consciousness. In that thought free state, you will begin to experience yourself as consciousness, not as mind or body. However, if you relax your vigilance even for a few seconds and allow new thoughts to escape and develop unchallenged, the siege will be lifted and the mind will regain some or all of its former strength. In a real fort, the occupants need a continuous supply of food and water to hold out during a siege. When the supplies run out, the occupants must surrender or die. In the fort of the mind, the occupants, which are thoughts, need a thinker to pay attention to them and indulge in them. If the thinker withholds his attention from rising thoughts or challenges, then before they have a chance to develop, the thoughts will all die of starvation. You must challenge them by repeatedly asking, who am I? Who is this person who is having these thoughts? If the challenge is to be effective, you must make it before the rising thought has had a chance to develop into a stream of thoughts. Mind is only a collection of thoughts and the thinker who thinks them. The thinker is the I thought, the primal thought, which rises from the self before all others and say, I am this body. When you have eradicated all thoughts except for the thinker himself by ceaseless inquiry or by refusing to give them any attention, the I thought sinks into the heart and surrenders, leaving behind it only an awareness of consciousness. This surrender will only take place when the I thought has ceased to identify with the rising thoughts, while there are still stray thoughts which attract you or evade your attention. The I thought will always be directing its attention outwards rather than inwards. The purpose of all self inquiry is to make the I thought more inwards towards the self. This will happen automatically as soon as you cease to be interested in any of your thoughts. Question. Many people find self-inquiry very difficult. Even most of Bhagwan's devotees seem to follow a bhakti path. If one cannot do inquiry successfully, should one first purify the mind with the japa? Annamalai Swami, no. If you have some interest in the path of self-inquiry, you should follow it even if you feel that you are not very good at it. If you want to do self-inquiry effectively and properly, you should stick to that method alone. Other methods may be good in their own right, but they are not good as preparations for self-inquiry. If you are serious about becoming a good violin player, you take lessons from a good teacher and practice as much as you can. If you encounter some difficulties, you don't switch to Nada Savaram, a type of clarinet, or a few months. You stay with your chosen instrument and you keep practicing until you get it right. The best preparation for self-inquiry is self-inquiry. Question. Going back to your advice to think I am the self, we are accustomed to make distinctions between things. You say meditate that you are the self. If I try to generate this feeling I am the self, it will not be real thing. It will just be another idea in the mind. Can thinking about this idea really help me? Annamalai Swami, when I say meditate on the self, I am asking you to be the self and not to think about it. Be aware of what remains when thoughts stop. Be aware of the consciousness that is the origin of all your thoughts. Be that consciousness. Feel that is what you really are. If you do this, you are meditating on the self. But if you cannot stabilize in that consciousness because your vasanas are too strong and too active, it is beneficial to hold on to the thought I am the self. If you meditate in this way, you are not cooperating with your vasanas, the ones that are blocking your self-awareness. If you don't cooperate with your vasanas, sooner or later they are bound to leave you. Question. When I read the Ramana literature, Bhagwan often appears to be very strict and stern. Was Bhagwan as kind to you as you have been to us? Annamalai Swami, different people elicited different responses from him. In my case, he was always kind and considerate, but you should not judge Bhagwan by his behavior. If he got angry with people or ignored them, it was always for their own good. He was transmitting grace through his anger as well as through his kindness. Question. Bhagwan's body has gone now. I know intellectually that he is the self and that he is everywhere, but I still sometimes wish that I could have had the good fortune of sitting in his physical presence. I know that the body is ultimately not important, but I would feel so happy and secure if I knew that I could go and talk or just sit with Bhagwan every time I had a problem. Annamalai Swami, everything you see is Bhagwan's body, the guiding presence that you desire is shining through all these forms and animating them. Don't be attached to Bhagwan's form or body. The real Bhagwan is beyond form and beyond death. Though water flows through the mouth of a stone tiger statue, everyone knows that it is not coming from the tiger. We all know that it is coming from the reservoir. Similarly, Bhagwan now speaks through everyone who knows and experiences him as he really is. Annamalai Swami with Bhagwan Ram Nam Rishi. Question. You often say that satsang is important. Can I have a satsang of Bhagwan even though he is now dead? I am asking this because I once had a very powerful experience of his presence while I was in Switzerland. At that time, Bhagwan had been dead for many years. Annamalai Swami says Bhagwan is all at all times and in all places since he is the self and not any particular form. It is of little importance that the body which we took to be Bhagwan is now dead. Radio waves can be received anywhere if you tune yourself to Bhagwan's frequency, which means abiding in the self. You can be aware of him broadcasting his grace wherever you are. There is never any separation from Bhagwan. Every atom in the material universe is Bhagwan. Every act which happens in the world is done by Bhagwan alone. Every being, every form is Bhagwan's form. When you are clearly attuned to Bhagwan, you will experience clarity and clearly attuned to Bhagwan, you will experience clarity and peace. You will receive guidance wherever you are. My dear friends, self-inquiry is not that difficult as many people feel that it is very difficult. It's very simple. Sit for meditation, close your eyes, jap for 10-15 minutes. This will calm your mind. Then visualize that you visualize and have positive affirmations that I am going inwardly towards the spiritual heart. I means here ego, mind, all vasanas, maya, everything. So mind and its all modifications, they are in the I. So I am going deeper, deeper, deeper and deeper, slowly, slowly, steadily, inwardly towards the spiritual heart. Now I am going to enter the spiritual heart. I am at the gate of spiritual heart. Now I have entered the spiritual heart. I see Bhagwan Sri Ramana Maharshi is present in the form of my real self, and I am now merged with the Atma, that is Bhagwan Ramana. So this way your mind, your vasanas, your ego, all maya will be submerged and almost vanishes from the scene. Now your mind is calm and quiet. You are feeling some sort of experiencing bliss. So now you can just inquire who am I for some time, then switch over to the feeling and imagination and visualization that I am Atma. I am Atma for some time. Then now you can visualize, imagine, and with positive affirmation that my Atma is merging with Brahma, merging with Brahma. Then, after some time, you have a positive affirmation, visualization, imagination that I am entering the superconscious state, Sahaja Samadhi, Sahaja Samadhi. Sahaja Samadhi, you will feel completely full of bliss. You will be experiencing a bliss, a great bliss, and you will, after few days or months, you will be attuned to this type of self-inquiry, and a day will come that you will be that, or you can say that self-inquiry will be a very, very natural and innate play of meditation. So, my dear friends, now I end this video here. This is a very special video. Please share it with your friends, children, and to all you know them. And so, like, comment, and share this video and subscribe the channel. Thanks a lot. I will carry on giving the most important videos in future also. Thank you, my dear friends. Namaskar. Namaskar. ॐ भूर्भुवः स्वः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः Namaste, my dear friends. I'm going to make this video on the very important topic, talks with Annamalai Swami. Dialogues with Annamalai Swami, a self-realized expert on self-inquiry who was a direct disciple of Ramana Maharishi. So on the demand of many of my friends, I am making this video. So Annamalai Swami came to Bhagwan in 1928. After a brief spell working as Bhagwan's attendant, he received a new job from him, supervising all the building projects in the ashram. Between 1928 and 1938, working directly under Bhagwan, he supervised the construction of the cowshed, the Ved Pathshala, the dining room, the storeroom, the old office block, now used as the book packing room, the dispensary, and the large revetment on the north side of the ashram. In 1938, an experience he had with Bhagwan changed the course of his life. Now, Annamalai Swami describes his experience with Bhagwan as follows. He says, I went to Bhagwan's bathroom to help him with his morning bath, Madhva Swami, and I gave him the usual oil bath and massage. When the bath was over, Madhva Swami asked a question. Bhagwan, the people who take ganja, lehyam, an Ayurvedic medicine whose principal ingredient is cannabis, experience some kind of ananda. What is the nature of this ananda? Is it the same ananda the scriptures speak of? Bhagwan replied, eating this ganja is a very bad habit. Then laughing loudly, he came over to me, that is to Annamalai Swami, hugged me and called out, Ananda. Ananda means bliss, bliss. This is how these ganja taking people behave. It was not a brief hug. Madhava Swami told me later that he held me tightly for about 2 minutes. After the first few seconds, completely lost all awareness of my body, means Annamalai Swami's body, and the world. Initially, there was a feeling of happiness and bliss, but this soon gave way to a state in which there were no feelings and no experience. This was a Shakti path. The Guru imparts his spiritual power to his disciple. So in Hindu Dharma, this type of activity is known as Shakti path. That means transfer of spiritual powers from the Guru to the disciple. The same thing was in case of Paramahamsa Ramakrishna imparted his spiritual powers to his disciples, especially Swami Vivekananda. So, Paramahamsa Ramakrishna imparted his spiritual power to Swami Vivekananda and others of his disciples through Shakti path. I did not lose consciousness. I just ceased to be aware of anything that was going on around me. I remained in this state for about 15 minutes. When I recovered my usual world consciousness, I was standing alone in the bathroom. Madhava Swami and Bhagwan had long since departed on break for breakfast. I had not seen them open the door and leave, nor had I heard the breakfast bell. This experience completely changed my life. As soon as I recovered normal consciousness, I knew that my working life at Sri Ramanashramam had come to an end. I knew that henceforth I would be living outside the ashram and spending most of my time in meditation. So this was nothing but Shakti path, through which Bhagwan Sri Ramana Maharshi imparted his spiritual power to Annamalai Swami. In 1942, following a request from Bhagwan, he came back to the ashram and did one more major construction job, the construction of a dispensary. Though he was not a full-time ashram worker after 1938, he continued to help with minor ashram works whenever Bhagwan asked him to. So Annamalai Swami was a very close disciple of Bhagwan Sri Ramana Maharshi. He received special grace from Ramana Bhagwan.